Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Welcome to this important webinar on the topic of smooth transitions, navigating changes to kindergarten curricula. My name is Hafsa Chaudhry. I'm a graduate from the Early Childhood Education program at Fanshawe College and the newest member of the Tarbiyah Learning Academy team in Ottawa. I will be your moderator for this evening. This webinar is hosted by the Islamic Schools Association of Canada, ISAC, and organized in partnership with Nectar Education and Sound Vision Canada. So allow me to start by briefly introducing ISAC and the work that we do. ISAC aspires to promote, advance, and develop Islamic schools across Canada by grounding our efforts in current and emerging research on Islamic education. Our vision is centered on fostering God-centered education inspired by an Islamic worldview. We share the mission of Islamic schools across the country to help nurture the next generation of Muslim students as model Canadian citizens, contributing meaningfully to both our country and the global ummah. With a team of educational experts, ISAC has been dedicated to building networks between Islamic schools and organizations across Canada. We share resources, offer educational conferences, retreats, professional development workshops, and create guides designed to strengthen Islamic pedagogy and teaching practices rooted in faith. So additionally, ISAC supports Islamic schools communities across Canada in offering webinars like these, honing in on topics of critical importance. Tonight, we are honored to partner with Nectar Education and Sound Vision Canada to address our topic this evening. To understand more about Nectar Education, we are pleased to have with us the founder and CEO, Dr. Fadwa Ilashis. Dr. Fadwa, the floor is yours.
Hey, assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Hafsa. As always, it's a pleasure to be partnering with ISAC on this very important webinar. It just shows their dedication to support Islamic educators here in Ontario and obviously in Canada in general. I wanted to share with you guys a little bit about Nectar Education and what we do. Nectar Education is a nonprofit whose vision is to advance quality learning opportunities that empower young learners to be khulafa by realizing their potential, serving with purpose, and leading positive change. So Nectar Education is really interested in reimagining the way that we see education so that everyone has a chance to experience quality learning. And the way that we do that is by three ways. We either have community partnerships, evidence-driven programs, or consulting and training. But through all these services, we make sure that our aims are to elevate quality learning for all children. And we do that by always going back to research, making sure that our strategies and training is evidence-informed, that it's whole child-driven, and that we're working to promote a positive learning community, and that children and individuals involved realize that the real-world impact that they have. So some of the glimpse into our work, our learning programs where we work directly with children, look something like leadership halaqas, STEM programs, Arabic immersion programs, or even things like Jerusalem in Islamic history. So this is where we're working directly with families and children, or where we partner with Muslim and non-Muslim community organizations such as Conservation Halton, a public library, or Islamic Relief Canada. And we work with them to engage children in solving real-world problems. And then finally, we also provide consulting and training directly with schools or weekend schools, and this involves us working with creating innovative and interactive professional development workshops, or even guiding communities of practice within the teacher communities within the school, where we share, best practices. We have discussions about some challenges that they might be facing. We also specialize in helping Arabic educators teach so that the students understand the Quran and not just memorize it, and that they're not just learning Arabic just for the sake of reading and basic writing, but really understanding the Quranic Arabic. And we do that through intensive workshop and training. It could be even a year-long sort of trainings. And then we also have a Nectar Educated Arabic Teaching Guidebook, over 50 pages long, that provides details about how to teach Arabic in the best, using the best, second language teaching strategies or world language teaching strategies, along with a bunch of different activities that teachers can employ. So, alhamdulillah, our reviews and what people have said about this speak for themselves. Many people have benefited from our training, whether they're parents, children, or teachers. And so, if there's, we have upcoming, training programs or community-based programs that are coming up. So if you guys would like to stay up to date with the latest news, you can feel free to scan the QR code or simply email us at info@nectareducation.ca or check out our socials as well. And again, it's a pleasure to be partnering with ISAC on this in this webinar. Jazakallah khairan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Badwa, for sharing. Um, Now, unfortunately, Sister Hiba Fahmy was not able to make it tonight, so I will just, on her behalf, I'll be talking about a little bit about Sound Vision Canada and their work. So, Sound Vision Canada is a registered charity providing educational workshops, quality training, and skill building resources for Muslims across Canada and beyond. At Sound Vision Canada, we are committed to supporting Muslim change makers with opportunities for learning and growth. Our programs provide teachers, parents, and not-for-profit leaders with the knowledge and skills they need to excel in their roles as they serve our Ummah. Sound Vision Canada is on a mission to equip, evaluate, elevate, and energize the Muslim community. We work to uh, cultivate excellence in order to continuously improve and build stronger organizations and institutions for further generations, ultimately to serve our Creator. We envision Muslim change makers enabled by personal and professional development. Sound Vision Canada offers in-person training events. Sound Vision Canada's Islamic school teacher training programs include an array of relevant topics led by experts in their fields, delivered in an interactive style with practical activities and opportunities for peer learning. Online training events, Sound Vision Canada conducts a variety of virtual teacher training workshops and specialized certificate programs. Customized training solutions. Sound Vision Canada is available to collaborate with Islamic institutions to develop tailored training programs that meet their specific needs for professional development. To learn more about our offerings, please visit soundvisioncanada.org. If you have any questions or if you'd like to discuss a customized teacher training workshop at your school, please contact us at info@soundvisioncanada.org. And finally, Sound Vision Canada is excited to announce an online teacher training workshop with educational consultant Nadia Islam on May 12th, 2026 at 7 p.m. EDT, closing the school year with purpose. As we come to the end of the school year, this workshop will create space for you as educators to pause, reflect, and reconnect with the purpose behind what you do each day. Grounded in both strong teaching practices and Islamic values, the session focuses on nurturing not just academic success, but also akhlaq, growth, and the overall well-being of our students. A key part of our time will be dedicated to reorganizing and celebrating the growth of every learner, including those students whose progress may not always be visible through grades alone. Educators will gain practical strategies they can bring into their classrooms right away. To learn more and to register, please visit soundvisioncanada.org training. Jazakallah khairan. So now I'm honored to introduce our panelists for the evening. First, I would like to say thank you all for joining us this evening. Throughout the webinar, please do use the Zoom Q&A to populate any questions that come up, and then there will be time to address that at the end, inshallah. So Nagam, the Sister Nagam Al Sayed is an early educator learner coordinator at London Islamic School and an experienced educator with a strong background in kindergarten and preschool education, teacher professional development, and early childhood pedagogy. She supports educators in implementing developmentally appropriate practices while thoughtfully aligning classroom experiences with curriculum expectations. Negm has led numerous workshops and professional learning sessions focused on early learning, literacy development, and reflective teaching practices. She is also an instructor in the early childhood education program at Fanshawe College, where she supports and mentors future educators in building the knowledge and skills needed to succeed in the field. I am also pleased to say that she was one of my professors in my first year for first semester as well as second, an incredible role model for the years that I have known her here in London. So Sister Nagam, over to you.
Thank you, Hafsa. Jazakumullah khair. I just shared my screen before we start. Just want to make sure that you can see. Can you see it, Hafsa? Everybody can see it?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much for confirming. Yeah, let me just make sure it works very well on my end. Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here tonight. I'm truly honored to facilitate my very first webinar. I'm really honored also to be providing this session for educators and teachers in kindergarten and maybe not kindergarten. And I hope, inshallah, this is going to be beneficial for everyone. I'd like to thank ISAC and Nectar Education and Sound Vision Canada for arranging this webinar tonight. Also, I would like to acknowledge and say thank you to my kindergarten team at the LIS, the London Islamic School here in London, Ontario, for providing me and preparing me and empowering me with wonderful moments that they captured from their classrooms to make this session, inshallah, beneficial and very much visual to deliver a meaningful session for everyone. So thank you, my team. Before we start, I am inspired by Sister Randa, who is recently arranging a beautiful series about moving from a teacher to murabbi by starting by setting our intentions. I always start with intention, not just because in Islam we're always judged by our intentions, but we are also guided by them throughout the journey of teaching children. We are setting the intentions today and we are renewing them for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept today's time that we are spending together and to reflect on our current practices and to come with open hearts and minds to improve and learn how to support children in our care with more understanding, care, and ihsan. So thank you for spending the time with us tonight. This session is basically to go through the new curriculum that is, inshallah, going to be mandated in September 2026 in Ontario. If you're not in Ontario, inshallah, I think it's going to be also helpful just to provide you with more practical pieces in your practical experience in the classroom right now. So it doesn't matter if you're in Ontario or not. Inshallah, I hope this will deliver a meaningful experience to everyone. For today's agenda or the learning journey, we will go through the changes. Why the change in the curriculum? Some overview key changes. Play base in the new curriculum and where it lies. Literacy foundation in the new curriculum. Mathematics foundation in the new curriculum. Science, technology, and engineering. Assessment and communication of learning. And some suggestions of the flow of the day. The basic or significant changes will lie basically in the literacy and mathematics foundation, and we will dismantle this today, inshallah, together. Before we start, I would like just to ask all of you, and I think there is a poll that will show up on your end. just to get some understanding of your clarity of the new curriculum. I know that a lot of educators might be interested in learning more about it through the website of the Ministry of Education, and I know some people are still navigating that. So just to give me a clear idea about where you are in that clarity, on a scale from 1 to 10, how clear do you currently feel about what the new curriculum, the kindergarten curriculum, mean in your classroom or school? I think that might take just a couple of minutes to give everybody a chance to just put their response. And I hope I can see the results on my end. Okay. So I see the results here shows that, okay, so 1, 2, 3, which is the lowest, is actually kind of the highest compare. Okay. So 32% said they are 1 to 3. 27% said they are on a level 4 to 6. 32% shows 7 to 10. Well, that's not bad. Actually, I was expecting a lot of no clarity at all, but that's actually promising. Thank you very much for providing me with this information. I think it's very beneficial for me too to understand where you are and what you're expecting from this new curriculum. And I hope, inshallah, I'll provide you with more information that will help you in September 2026. So let's go just a little bit through or over the reasons why the curriculum has been changed. Then the program that we're working with right now, the Kindergarten Program 2026, it was established in 2026, and for 10 years it has been our practice. The new research found that children learn better through explicit and systematic instruction instead of only play-based. The play-based was advertised as expose children to play experience and have them to acquire the learning on their own. However, the new research indicates that that's not the case. They need still to play, of course, but before they need to play, they need to listen to instructions and explicit instruction for any subjects, specifically in literacy and math. It doesn't mean that we were doing things wrong. It means that now we know better. Also, the alignment with later grade expectation. Kindergarten is a 2-year program, JK and SK. So for the child or the student to go to grade 1 not equipped enough with the tools, that will make grade 1 and up a struggle for that child. Therefore, with the new curriculum, things are completely aligned with the grade 1 expectation, which will make this a smooth transition for them for 1 and up. Government priorities and educational policy. We know that every year we get the results and the data from the government, specifically in Ontario, through the EQAO standardized testing in grade 3, 6, and 9. The recent data that we are receiving, specifically grade 6, indicates that students are achieving or meeting the expectation for math, and it's only 51%. So 51% in grade 6 meet the expectation, which is very low. And that goes back to the foundations. And that's not only in math, in literacy, reading, and writing. Maybe math is the lowest, still we need to focus on literacy. And that takes me to the next point, which is growing focus on foundational skills. When we talk about foundation skills, I cannot ignore and cannot eliminate the fact that you guys are working with kindergartners. And I'm quoting Brother Asad here when he always says that kindergarten teachers are heroes. You are the heroes, and you are here because you are heroes. You're working with a very challenging age group. I'm not saying challenging in terms of behavior, but they do need a lot of focus, a lot of care, and love and drilling foundation. So whatever you do now, that sets them up for success in the future. Never underestimate your job. You're doing amazing. And finally, responding to international literacy research. I'm putting here between two brackets the science of reading. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the science of reading, but this is the most recent approach in terms of how children learn to read. And because of that approach, a lot of things are drastically changing in literacy, specifically in kindergarten. Inshallah, tonight we will come across that in a little bit of details because that might be another whole webinar. So I have also another question for all of you that also will show as a poll on the screen. Your current practices, because that will also indicate what you're going to do in September. How or what best describe your current practices in your kindergarten teaching approach? Mostly play-based, mostly instruction-based, or a combination of both? I can see the poll, and I think everybody can see it on their end as well. I'll give you a couple of more seconds to get the answers. My intention of asking this question while you guys are putting your responses is because I worked in an Islamic environment as a teacher and I also worked in the public system, I noticed that play-based was being interpreted completely differently. It depends on the teacher. So in some classes I worked with, they used to use play-based as entirely play, like 100% play, while in other cases it was instruction time and then play and vice versa. So I wanted to understand where you are in terms of your practices in kindergarten. Okay, perfect. I like the answer here is extremely promising. And if you do that, if you do the combination, let me tell you that congratulations, you already are on the right track. So inshallah, in terms of the new curriculum, you already are equipped and empowered to go through it. No problems at all. Now, let's go through key terminology changes. In the old curriculum, if you read it, you will find that they always keep using the word child. Actually, it was not curriculum. It used to be called program. That's number 2. So the old curriculum used to be called kindergarten program, while the new is kindergarten curriculum. We used to use the word child, but in the new one, you will find only the word student. In the old one, it used to be frames, the 4 frames that we will cover right now. And in the new one, it's called strands. Literacy and mathematics used to be behavior, the way they demonstrate their learning, and now it's going to be called foundations. Outdoor education will turn to be environmental education. A lot of changes that has us to think a little bit about them and see why is that happening. The 4 frames now, or the first 4 strands, and now they will be called frames, or actually previously known as frames, are Strand A, Foundations of Language and Mathematics, where all the significant changes will be in this strand. Strand B, Problem Solving and Innovation. Strand C, Self-Regulation and Well-Being. Strand D, Belonging and Contributing. The significant change will be in Strand A. Strand B will have only one addition, which is coding. And we will cover that, inshallah, throughout this webinar. Strand C and D will remain exactly the same as the old one. It's just being transitioned from frame to strand with sub-strands underneath. And by the way, just to let everybody know, inshallah, I'm not sure if it's today or maybe tomorrow, you will be receiving the slides as a PDF format, and you will also be receiving a PDF file contains the new curriculum completely. I downloaded the whole thing from the Ministry of Education website to make sure we're all aligned with that with the new expectations. I intentionally tried to put the 2 pages in front of everyone to see the differences. The one on the left side is the old kindergarten program 2016. The one on the right side is the kindergarten curriculum 2026. They both have overall expectations and specific expectation, but now in the new one, we call it strands, not just expectation. The difference, as you can tell, is in the old one, we can see that we are, as educators and teachers, are provided with some sort of language, tools, what to say, what to do, how to respond in specific situation while you are navigating how to teach that child these expectations. In the new curriculum, it's all about the numbers. It's all about the strands. That has me to think a little bit about the difference. And that will take me to a question, but I'll ask you that question later. Now, overall pedagogical shifts. The primary method in the old curriculum, it was only play and inquiry based. In the new one, it's explicit instruction, then play. The organization of the whole thing was from 4 frames to subject strands. The literacy and was emergent literacy, and now it has to be systematic phonics and instructions. Same with math. Math used to be discover math concepts through play, but now it has to be, again, explicit instructions, then they have to play. So after hearing all these changes and the new terminologies, you as kindergarten teachers and educators, how do you feel about what you're hearing so far? While you are putting your responses, I can share with you how I felt at that time. While I was reading the differences between the new curriculum and the old curriculum as an ECE, I felt a little bit sad. I felt sad because I'm feeling that we are taking away that piece of childhood from the child and turning him or her into a student and only a student. And because I honor the child development, I understand that child development is a huge part of their development in kindergarten. That also hit me hard. But at the same time, reflecting on the current situation, the competitive workplace, and the competitive society that we live in, are we actually doing them thing or favor by just offering them with only playtime and no instruction time? Are we giving them any benefits when we are just giving them time to being children and not being citizens and not preparing them for this world? So that made me feel like, okay, I think we still can do the balance here by honoring child development and understanding what they need, and at the same time equip them and empower them with what they need to face the new words. I am not sure if I can see the responses right now. Yeah, maybe we will see the responses. Take your time, think and reflect about how you feel about these changes so far. When I ask you how you feel, it's very important for me and for you to keep addressing how you feel about any changes or any new practices, because how you feel will impact how you're going to practice that. So it's important to address it, sit with it, and see how we can navigate that new thing and new addition in your practices. Okay, while you're still putting your input, which is very important for all of us, I can move to the next slide. Where is play-based then? Is play-based being removed? Because I was asked that question a couple of times. The short answer is no. It's just going to be removed from free play to intentional play. What does that mean? Before we start talking about play types in the classroom, we would like to understand more the names of the play, the type of the play, and which play that we need in the class and what time we should provide the child with that type of play. Student-directed play, guided play, and educator-directed play. We will show that in depth right now. The student-directed play, where basically when the child have the autonomy and agency to go and pick what they like, what they're interested in, what speaks to them, and what resonates with them the most. While they do that on their own, they are practicing how to show some creativity, how to show social interaction. It also gives them a chance to communicate and learn communication skills, and of course, to be independent, and even more than that. So that's the part when they have to do not whatever, not in the sense of do whatever, is just choose what you like and be yourself at that time specifically. That is not the whole day. That should be a block of the day. The guided play is very important, where the adult, the teacher or educator, or even parents at home can be part of that. However, children can still maintain the ownership of that space or that playtime. So they pick what they want, but they still need guidance from the teachers to reinforce math concepts or reinforce literacy concepts or just help developing thinking skills. A little example in this math center here that was caught in one of the JK classrooms. The teacher can be there and simply ask the child, can you represent number 6 for me using the butterflies? And then can ask, can you represent this number 9 for me using the butterflies? And then can ask another question, which one is more? Which one is less? So through these guided questions, the child can learn the concept of more and less in an indirect way, which is also subitizing without counting. Can you tell me which one is more, which one is less? So these kinds of skills, they're not going to be done just on their own, like the child on their own in a student-directed play. They can't do that. They need the guidance. That's why it's called the guided play. And the third type is the educator-directed play that heavily relies on practicing specific academic skills, literacy, math, and science. And that definitely needs the teacher to be there all the time. So we have the three types of play. We need them? Yes, we do, which means play-based is not going to be disappearing from the new curriculum. It's just going to be repositioned. So the teacher here, the role will be shifted from just observing children playing and having fun and engage to be intentionally facilitating how they learn, what they need to learn. And then comes the value that we all would like to focus on, which is the social and emotional learning, or let's say in an Islamic language, how to practice akhlaq and build the character. So play here is a tool to practice our akhlaq and values. How does that look like? We all know as teachers and educators for kindergartens that social emotional learning is a big piece of child development. And this is equivalent to tarbiyah, the whole child development in Islamic environments. So when we provide them with learning opportunities, all kind of learning opportunities, all the type of learning and playing that we just introduced, we provide them with a space and opportunity to practice patience by turn taking that will teach them sabr, gratitude, and saying thank you to each other and appreciating each other and learn the value of shukr. We give them opportunity to practice how to be kind and know what kindness is by sharing, which is rahmah. And also we teach them how to apologize and saying sorry for making the right thing. And this is thaqafatul i'tidar that we know that so many adults lack until today. So play is a huge component that you cannot eliminate. These values you cannot teach directly and explicitly like literacy and math. Therefore, play cannot be removed. It's just being repositioned and intentionally designed. Let's move to the big piece today, literacy foundation in the new curriculum, strands A1 to A4. A1 is oral and non-verbal communication. A2, foundations for reading and writing. That's the big part here. So number 2 or A2 is the biggest change. A3, understanding and responding to text. A4, expressing ideas and creating text. So the literacy shift goes in the old approach. It was relying more on emergent literacy and exposure to books. So you get into the classroom and you expose children to so many books, read aloud, and as they're exposed, they will make sense of some letters. They will start asking about letters, and things will start emerging in the class. And then you start designing your plan. That was the case, by the way, with some teachers that I supplied with in the public system. However, the new approach in the new curriculum heavily relied on structured phonics instruction and explicit teaching of sound and letter correspondence. This is something cannot be acquired naturally. We have to teach them this. And there's the science of reading approach that greatly supports this learning. The literacy shift focuses on 4 areas based on the new curriculum: phonic awareness, phonemic awareness, phonic and word reading, morphological awareness, which was something new, vocabulary development, and creating text. We will dismantle those one by one. But before we move to that, I would like just to focus a little bit on the science of reading because it's one of the big reasons why this change is happening. What does the science of reading tell us? I'll summarize it. It's a whole thing. And as I said, it can be done in one whole webinar. The science of reading tells us that reading is not natural. So children at a young age, they can learn how to speak naturally. Speaking can come by mimicking naturally. But reading is not like that. Reading needs to be taught explicitly. They also said that strong foundation are essential, and that's why the science of reading focuses only on the early learners, means JK, SK, grade 1 and 2. It might be extended a little bit to grade 3, but not after that because that's beyond early learning. So the science of reading focuses on how children at this age group learn how to read. Skill must be taught systematically and in order. The order is significantly important in teaching reading. If you come across any of the programs that teaches based on the science of reading, you will find that some sounds are taught before other sounds intentionally for specific reasons. So that order is also intentional. See, we get back again to the intention and niyyah. Practice and repetition matters. So you teach, you do the explicit teaching and instructions, and then you give them a time to practice and repeat through playtime, whether it was guided play or teacher or educator directed play. They still need that repetition to reinforce what you taught in a big group. The science of reading also tells us that reading is not just decoding. Decoding is just a word recognition, while it has to have also the component of understanding, the comprehension. So word recognition, which is decoding, and understanding together, they will make the reading. Reading is not only decoding words. They have to be understanding what they are reading and make sense of it. Oral language is critical. For children, specifically at that age, if they are struggling with speech delay, that's not going to help their case, unfortunately, and we have to be mindful of that. That might pull them a little bit behind. To learn how to read, you have to speak well and understand well. And finally, early instruction prevents future gaps. That's why this approach is focusing only on the early years of learning, kindergarten, grade 1 and 2. Now, this is the heaviest part in this presentation, and I hope I will be able to deliver it smoothly. Phonic and word reading. Here we have two parts. We have the foundation and we have the how to use the foundation. So this one goes first and this one goes second. The foundation is the phonic awareness or phonemic awareness. This component depends only on hearing the sounds. Hearing the sounds, identify them just by hearing, not looking at them, not seeing the letters themselves, and connecting sounds to letters eventually. While the how is the phonics of connecting the sounds and to letters, and then decoding, and then encoding. I'll give you a little example. So for example, if you're sitting with a big group of children and start saying to them, tell me 2 rhyming words out of the words that you will be hearing. Remember, they don't see the words, they just hear them. Top, zip, mop. Which one makes the rhyming words? They're expected to say top, mop, because zip is not aligning. So just for them to identify that and capture it by hearing is a huge step for them. It's not easy. It sounds like it's so easy for us, but we are talking about 4 and 5 years olds, and some of them might be 3 actually when they join JK. So we have to be mindful that these skills, if they're not there, the rhyming, the segmenting, it's very important to have it, because if it's not there, that's going to be a struggle for the next level. So being systematic and in order, remember the order that we talked about. Hear the order, how important it is. Also, the phonemic awareness example, like for example, you can just say to the children, say cat without k. They're expected to substitute the k and say at, which is also difficult. But if they get it, that will make the next step, which is the how level, way easier. Let's go to the next one. Example of connecting sounds to letters. We all do that by default, and I understand that most of you do that already. K, at, cat, that's decoding. While encoding is other way around. You give them the word mat, and they have to spell it and write it down. So decoding is about reading, encoding is spelling and writing. These are 2 concepts that they need to learn at this stage. At my school, we decided to do the foundation in JK and the how in SK. And I have done some research for all of you and provided some of the programs that could be a good suggestion for your school to foster if you're going to go with the science of reading approach, which personally and professionally, we found it very, very beneficial in supporting children learning how to read. Morphological awareness. This is a new component that everybody kept asking, what does that even mean? So morphological awareness is to build the awareness in children about how the words can look differently when we add different sounds and letters at the end. For example, cat versus cats. It will sound different and it will mean different and it will look different. Read versus reading. The ing, the ed, the s's, all these addition at the end is morphological awareness that we need to build in children. I know for some they might say, but that's too much for kindergartners. But guess what? It can do that, especially if it comes within a strong program that can teach them these skills at a very young age. Imagine if they have these strong foundations. Imagine the reading skills, how strong they're going to be when they go to grade 1 and up. How does that look like in the class? When they start advertising to this new change in the curriculum, they called it back to basics. It's literally back to basics. When a teacher is there working on the board, putting all the text on the board, and children are required to follow up in their books, this is exactly how it should look like. This is exactly how the science reading is working. And this is where we want them to be at, inshallah. This is an example from one of our SKs, and the children are reading, mashallah, fluently. Now, these are some suggested programs. Haggerty is one of them that we decided to use in our JK program. UFly, which is the University of Florida Literacy Institute, is another complete program that we use in SK. UFly works from SK. It's not meant to be for JK. It starts SK, grade 1 and 2. They might extend it also to 3. So far at my school, we use that in SK and grade 1, and inshallah next year it will move with the grade 1 to grade 2. There are also some other programs that, if you're interested in, you can search that up, inshallah. Haggerty, Bridge to Reading, Flyleaf, Emergent Reader, Logic of English, Pride Reading Program, and Wilson Foundations. I'm sure there are more than that online, but these are the most popular ones. These programs, again, they support the research-based approach, the science of reading, in terms of teaching reading for young learners. And finally, actually, we still have some in the literacy. The vocabulary development. Vocabulary development is how we can teach or help children and students, I'm using both terminologies, child and students, how to help them to acquire more vocabulary, to help them express their thoughts and ideas. We want them to be expressive. We want them to understand what they are saying. So how can we do that? It always relies on the one-on-one conversation that you can have with them, whether on small group or one-on-one or even in a big group. We need to use the word describe, the word compare, the word observe and notice, the word explain. So instead of asking generic question like, what is this? You can just simply be specific and ask, can you compare these two blocks? Can you describe the drawing that you drew for me? Observe what happens when you add some water and let's notice what's going to change. Explain. Can you explain how you built this tower? So when you see the difference in these questions, that reflects depth in conversation, and you're expecting them to offer you more vocabulary as they are responding to you. Some of them will have the vocabularies and some won't, and that will be your role there to give them the wording that they are trying to find, but they still don't have. Through these questions, open-ended questions are your best friend. And you know what else is going to be your best friend in this journey? I'm going to tell you, inshallah, after we finish these slides. So how does that look like in an Islamic environment? Getting back to our intentions and niyyah. Since we are talking about open-ended questions, how can we have open-ended questions related to our values? We can ask the same wording, describe Allah's creation around you when you go for a walk outside. Explain how you showed kindness or rahmah to a friend today. Actually, you can use the word rahmah literally. So it's not only kindness, we are there to teach them Islamic values and terminologies as well. Observe the sky. What do you notice about it? How is it not falling on us? And engage in open-ended conversation with them and You know what? You're going to be amazed of the amount of information they have. And this is the slide I was talking about. Your best friend in this journey, specifically vocabulary development, is my kindergarten teachers will relate. Read aloud. It's always read aloud. Read aloud, read aloud. Whenever you have time throughout the day, grab a book and go and read. Get some books from the public library and have your bookshelf rich with lots of reading. It's not just to expose them to books, it's you want to give them vocabulary to teach them how to interact with the words. And now, creating text. We're expecting them to express their thoughts with drawing in JK, while by SK, they have to be creating some text. This was one of the JK students expressing their love of the family by just drawing the family, while here, that's an SK student actually able to write a sentence. I love my family. We want them to move from here to there by the end of kindergarten. Now let's move to mathematics foundation in the new curriculum, which is strands A5 to A10. In A5, it's mathematic process, number sense and operation in A6, A7 patterns and relationships, A8 data literacy and probability, A9 geometric and spatial reasoning, and finally measurements. You will not notice a lot of changes in mathematics in terms of strains and expectations. However, the approach will be a little bit different. There were also two added components. The first one is fractions, but don't panic. It's not the complicated fractions that we all panic to see. It's just limited to share objects equally. So we're talking about halves here. That's it. That's the foundation of fractions. And coding. Coding, based on the Ministry of Education, goes under strand B, which is problem solving and innovation. However, in some of the math books, you might find coding. So I wanted intentionally to put it here so we don't miss it. It might be under math, it might be under problem solving and innovation. These are the only two additions different from the old curriculum to the new curriculum. Everything else would be the same. So we talked about explicit and systematic teaching in literacy, which makes so much sense. But how can we do that in math? Math is all about doing, practicing, building, exploring. How can I make it explicitly done? Think about it that way. If you're teaching them, for example, the 2D shape lesson, you're giving them the vocabulary to make sense of the universe or the word. So you have to introduce these vocabulary and show it to them before you let them go and explore. Let me give you an example. The teaching lesson in 2D shape in the old curriculum used to be like this, where teachers will design educational centers like this and have children just to go explore and learn on their own by just being exposed to the 2D shapes. So they will be noticing them, they will be touching, they will be counting, but nobody explicitly told them what they're expected to be learned out of that experience. In the new curriculum, you will have to have it old way or back to basics again. So you have to have the shape in front of them, and you have to tell them exactly what every piece means. This is a little quote here that you can just tell your students while you're teaching them the 2D shape. A square is a special shape. It has 4 straight sides that are exactly the same length and 4 corners or vertices. Just through this simple quote here, you're teaching them specific vocabulary, and I put them in bold fonts. Straight sides, length, corners, vertices, or vertex. This is the language they need to learn at this age, and then you give them the chance to apply it, give them the chance to implement it through play. This is a very simple lesson in JK class when the teacher was teaching the children the 3D shape. So they finished the 2D shape already, and now they moved to 3D shape. And she was giving them some riddles. I am a 3D shape. I have 6 rectangular faces. I have 8 corners, and I cannot roll, and I can stack and slide. What am I? So they connect the dots together after explicitly taught that, and then they make the connection and understand which shape the teacher is talking about. And then she created for them this idea by going into the class and find the shapes that she was talking about, which she already planned ahead of time to provide them with the opportunity to go find them based on the riddles that she did for them. So this is a Perfect example of explicitly taught lesson and then a piece of application afterward. This is exactly how your math lesson should look like. How does that look like in Islamic environment? And actually, one can ask, is math connected to Islamic studies? That's a good question that some teacher actually asked me. Do we have to connect math to Islamic studies? Well, if we don't do that, the message that we're delivering to kids is we can disconnect deen from dunya, where everything is connected and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the whole thing for us. So how can we separate math from Islamic studies or from Islamic values? So for example, instead of saying, tell me an example of a 2D shape, let's take it to the broader way and ask, how about Allah's creations? What did he create that looks like a square or rectangle or a circle or whatever comes to your mind? Or a sphere if you're talking later about the globe. Or let's look at the Kaaba. Bring a model of a Kaaba. What is this shape? What each side is the shape? What's the name of each side? And start talking about it and count. Count the sides, count the corners. You can do so many things by just related math to what your values are. Also, teaching math through real life context. For example, let's say Subhanallah 50 times and start counting until 50. Maybe let's share equally, just like how Islam teaches us fairness. These are just some quotes that you can use in your class to implement math with Islamic values. Allah created the day and night and they repeat in a pattern. Let's see that pattern. Day, night, day, night. Then the idea is there, but it's also related and connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also, Allah is the creator. He made things in different sizes and colors and shapes. Let's go and find what Allah created and take them outside for a walk or for maybe outdoor education. Even outdoor education can be connected to that. Everything is connected if we think about it and if we have that pure intention to have it. Let's move to science, technology, and engineering. With science, technology, and engineering, this is something very hard to be taught at that age explicitly and directly. They still have to be taught that, but it has to be done through scientific investigation. For example, when some children are trying to build a castle or a fort or whatever comes to their mind, that's an engineering project. In that experience, children identify the problem. We want to build a castle. Start testing the solution if the castle is falling apart, modifying the structure so it stays still, and improve the design. This is a whole process of building, and they can do that definitely on their own or with a guidance from the teacher. Linking to science experiment in the class. This is another experiment, and it was also in JK when the children were provided with vinegar and baking soda. They are now investigating and understanding what is vinegar, how does it smell like? What is the baking soda? What happened if we mix them together? Observing the experiment and testing them and then making conclusion. When we put this with that, it's going to be overflowing the cup. Something will be changing here. So that's also something you can just give them an idea and give them an opportunity to practice and experiment. Then you teach them what was happening here because they need to see it first. And also connecting to nature, which is nothing better than that, especially in this weather that we are experiencing right now. This is an experiment when the teacher got two branches from outside and she put them in the water. And every day the children will come and observe what are the changes happening on these branches. Is something changing on these leaves? They notice the changes. They document by drawing them. And then they make the connection. Throughout 2 weeks, a lot of changes will happen. And that helps them to build observation skills. It's very important to give them these changes in the class. Now, again, the famous question, how does that look like in an Islamic environment? We all are encouraged deeply in Islam to reflect and think. Memorization is important, but when it comes to Quran memorization, but we cannot memorize science. We cannot memorize math. We need to keep thinking and engage in thinking and encourage children to engage in critical thinking and problem solving. So, for example, let's get back to our pictures. The first picture when children are drawing or building the castle with magnetize. You can offer this question. How do you think it will happen? What do you think will happen? What do you think will happen if we used wooden blocks instead of magnetiles? That's a question that they can answer, or they can actually take a wooden block and start building with it and see what's going to happen. Think what will happen if we change vinegar to oil. Some of them will start questioning. Maybe nothing will happen. Maybe it will do the same. Maybe they will bring some water actually and start experimenting with that. So encouraging more investigation in the class. What will happen if Allah did not give us nighttime? What do you think is going to happen to this plant? What do you think is going to happen to us if we don't have nighttime? So in an Islamic environment, keeping children engaged in questioning and asking questions and connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is essential to come up with aqidat al-tawheed. So they know that there is a creator in the words. And that takes me to the beautiful, beautiful curriculum or model, the 5D thinking. We also fostered that in our kindergarten classes, not just to teach science, but to connect them to Islamic values. The 5D thinking focuses a lot on 5 steps. Explore, when children can explore physical environments and start asking the what question. What is this? And then it takes them to the next step, which is comparing this, what they see, to Allah's creation and start seeing the differences. And questioning, well, what is this and who created it? And then going to connecting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oh, Allah created this, and we as human beings created something else, and there is a difference between this and that. And that takes us to oneness or tawheed, and finding the balance in the word that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created for us. And finally, after finding all these things, we can finally come up to appreciate and say Alhamdulillah and Shukr Lillah for everything He created for us. So science and exploration and investigation should at the end be connected to our aqidah, our values. It should always be connected back to that. Assessment and communication of learning. So I know that in assessment and communication of learning is always in our minds associated to report card writing and progress reports. And by the way, the Ministry of Education said that they will release the new templates that aligns with the new curriculum by the beginning of the school year. We're not sure when, but they will release it. So the template that we are using right now is no longer valid after this year. That applies only in Ontario. Why assessment in kindergarten? I know that a lot of teachers might be concerned about assessment in kindergarten because in kindergarten, we don't do testing. Children are not ready for testing. Assessment is for us to evaluate children so we have better understanding of their learning and their progressing, so we can better support them if they are not progressing. And why? Because again, from an Islamic perspective and niyyah, because they are an amana. They are something that we have in the class, and we are trusted for them, and we are responsible for them. So take assessment here not as a check mark that it is something that you have to do in the class. It is something you have to do because it's an amana, not just a duty. If you take it that way, trust me, assessment will be way easier thing for you. And again, assessment in kindergarten is not about testing. It's about evaluating your practices, evaluating the learning centers that you're providing, and evaluating the children's needs. When we talk about assessment in kindergarten is not one thing that you do in one day. It's an ongoing process that you can do every single day. When you observe them as they learn, when you engage with them in open-ended conversation, then you will start realizing that some children know more than the others. So how can we help those who are not knowing enough? Or maybe they know, but they don't have the language to express it. Let's get back to the vocabulary development. Everything is connected. So that ongoing process is beneficial for you. But are we going to memorize everything? No, that's why documentation is important here. You would have to provide a descriptive feedback, written feedback that is clear, specific, and meaningful, not just for you, but for the child record, something to provide to the family when they come to discuss their child progress. Based on the new curriculum, we have 3 types of assessments: assessment for learning, assessment of learning, and assessment as learning. That will come in the next slides. Assessment for learning is something that happens every day. This is what I was describing right now. So you do it every single day to improve your practice and improve the child's learning. So it happens during the learning, during the day. While assessment of learning, this is when you sit, just you by yourself, get all the previous documentation after everything is done, and you have to write a comment now to include in that child's report card or progress reports. So this is something you do at the end. Let's say at the end of the semester, at the end of the term, you have to do that to evaluate the learning, not to improve it now. So the assessment for learning happen to help, while assessment of learning is to judge the whole learning experience. Assessment as learning is where the child's voice is included, when the child can say if they understand or if they don't. Sometimes children can be expressive enough to tell you if they do understand or if they don't understand, and we have to be mindful of that too. I have a little scenario here to show you the 3 different assessments on the same exact scenario. So when the child is building the blocks, and you be there with the child, remember the types of playing. This could be a guided playtime or educator directed playtime. And you'll be there with the child and ask that meaningful question. I noticed that you made a tall tower. How did you keep it from falling? While you ask that question, you're actually assessing the problem-solving skills and spatial awareness, because these are the 2 skills related to this play experience. And then that takes you to, now what? What's next? What can I introduce next time to scaffold that learning and extend it for that child? If the same experience will be assessed as learning, then I have to listen what the child is providing. Maybe the child can say, I did it. It was hard, but I did it. That tells you the level of confidence that child is holding. And they can say it's, yeah, I know what I'm doing, that confident child. Or they can say, I don't know. And that's very common, by the way. In kindergarten, you might see children building beautiful building, complicated ones. But when you ask them how they do it, they say, I don't know. What does that tell you about this child? They have beautiful and strong skills in building and problem-solving skills, but they don't have expressive language. They don't have the vocabulary. So when you assess this child, you can put that note that this child needs scaffolding in vocabulary building, or maybe confidence. Maybe they do know how to talk, but they are not confident enough. So that assessment as learning is also another important piece that you can document how the child feel about themselves, and that makes you think, what's next? Is it problem-solving skills? Is it literacy? Is it confidence? Is it social and emotional learning? A lot of things that you can assess just based on what that child told you. And finally, for the same scenario, assessment of learning, that later you can write that comment. The child demonstrated growing ability in problem solving and spatial reasoning during play. So I hope that these 3 examples in the same scenario will give you an idea about the different kind of assessment that you need to master in the new curriculum. So to summarize it, assessment for and assessment as learning, it happens daily, every day. When you keep engaging with children and listen to them, that's for and as learning. While assessment of learning, that's the summary of the whole practice. And you have to put your final comments in the report cards. To do it in a different way now, just look at the bolded fonts, the words that are bolded. Be more intentional, not just observe. That's assessment for learning. And assessment of learning, you need documentation, not memorization. Documentation is your strongest evidence. You always need to document what you see. Documentation will save you headache. Documentation will be your backbone. Always document, write it down. And when we say documentation, I don't mean necessarily behavior, but I mean learning. What the child is learning and how it is the child learning. And that takes me to pedagogical documentation as an assessment tool. Pedagogical documentation is a very broad and very wide topic that can also need another whole webinar. Today, we will just use it for the purpose of assessment because it's part of the new curriculum. This is a huge board in one of our JK classrooms. The purpose of this board is to make the learning process visible. It's all about the process, not the products. So when children are learning through something and you keep documenting this process and you go and revisit that documentation, you will see where that child was and where this child is right now. This journey, and they call it Journey with Leaves, started in September or maybe in October during the fall time when children were really engaged with a lot of leaves falling off the trees. We have a big yard in our school, and children are always engaged in outdoor education. And they were so obsessed at that time with leaves and how they are changing the colors and falling off the trees. And they started asking simple questions. Where do leaves go? Especially when the weather was changing into cold weather, they were asking, are they going to go under the ground in the winter? Are they going to be covered with the snow? Are they going to disappear and show again? And the educators at that time put that intention, and it was a pure Islamic intention because they were concerned about how we can teach children the values, the Islamic values, and the creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a very age-appropriate way. So they had this piece in their minds. It was specifically an ayah that that teacher specifically was thinking about all the time. ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا. Oh Allah, you never created something with no purpose. So if He created the leaves that way and He created the leaves to disappear in the winter, where are they going to go throughout the winter? How are we going to see them back? It was a whole journey of science. And not just science, they were actually learning through that journey a lot of things, not just about leaves, about themselves. Since leaves are having different colors, so do we. What does that reflect? And we found a pieces of social justice coming out of this. And then after that, now they're exploring outside and the leaves are showing now a little bit more. And now some bugs are showing in the picture and the bugs are encountering that whole experience. And a lot of sparking conversation are happening in that class. And the teachers are documented and writing every single thing. Imagine when you revisit that documentation from the beginning to the end of the year, how many things you will discover about children in your class that you forgot from October, and now in May, you will start remembering them. And that's why documentation is your weapon. Documentation is your backbone. It will help you find where these children were and now where they are right now, because we are forgetful. We forget. We have 22, 25 children. We can't keep tracking all these learning in the class unless you document it. So make it pedagogical, make it intentional, and keep it consistent. How does documentation become an assessment tool if it answers 3 questions? What did the child learn? How do we know the child learned? And what is next? If your documentation doesn't answer these questions, it's not documentation, it's a record. So make sure when you document to write these answers, then it's documentation, and then you can use it for your own assessment piece. Now I'm going to give you some suggestions of the flow of the day, like the planning. Why? Because we want to maintain the balance between instruction time, explicit instruction that they can learn what you want them to learn at that time. And also, as we agreed at the beginning of this webinar, playtime is essential and it has to be intentional. So when you provide them with time to play and practice the values that you want them to practice and understand, you have to do that in a way, in a time during the time of the day that you know they're going to get the best out of it. So some suggestions will be the morning block time, which is when they come from home, they ate, they're fresh, they're fine, everything is good. Let's do explicit literacy instruction, and that building the foundation, the literacy foundation. Then you provide them with learning centers. It's going to be a combination between guided and teacher-directed play. Why? To reinforce what they taught, what you taught in the morning block. And then you go to recess and snack and extend outdoor education and outdoor time as much as you can. We do not take that away from them by any chance. Outdoor time, recess time is a right, not a privilege. It's not a privilege. You have to keep it. And then in the afternoon block, then we can do a little bit of math, explicit math instruction, and then followed by hands-on, just like similar to the 3D lesson that we provided in this webinar. And finally, the end of the day, where student-directed play or free play, where they can have the choice to pick what they want to play in. It's really not heavily education, but it's still can give them that time to practice their autonomy, their agency, and start picking and choosing and socializing. And you still can be there to observe and writing notes down. Throughout this webinar, I'll give you just quick takeaways from what I kept repeating over and over. We said a lot about intentionality. And when I say intentionality, I mean Islamic intentionality, Islamic intentions, pedagogical intention, academic intention. You have to come in the morning with specific intention for the day. And you have actually to have specific intention at the beginning of the year and keep revisiting that every day. You are directed by your intentions. Structured and clear expectations. It has to be clearly broken down and clearly visible in your class, step by step. Planning, planning, planning. With little ones, mashallah, with a lot of energy level, with curiosity, with a lot of curriculum that you need to be aware of and you want to cover, you can't do that without planning. You can't do that without being super organized. Play is a tool, not a goal. I know some teachers, not in Islamic environments, I know some teachers in the public system can take it as a goal. So children can go and play and have fun and engage. That's a different philosophy. But now, based on the new curriculum, play is a tool. It cannot be a goal. Assessing for the sake of amana. Let's remind ourselves that when we do assessment, we do it because it's an amana. It's a trust and responsibility that we don't take lightly. And finally, be flexible. Some days will not be like the others. So you have to have a sort of flexibility when you have to shift things around the day. Some days the children will be very energetic and some days will be out of routine. So you still have to be flexible to change and shift here and there. A simple Islamic framework based on all what we said today. It all starts with intention, niyyah, intend, and then you teach the explicit instruction, practice, which is play, when they have to practice what they were taught, and finally reflect. You and the child should take that time to reflect. They reflect on their character and learning, and you reflect on your practices. A goal goes again, intend, teach, practice, and reflect. Before we wrap up today's webinar, I would like to invite you to leave today with a simple question. What is the intention I want to bring into my classroom tomorrow, not next year? So when you start building this habit of forming your intentions and niyyah, I think that will be greatly appreciated in your practice, not just next year, in your whole life. Let's always start with a niyyah, and let's have niyyah toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then toward ourselves, toward our children, toward the society. And this is a beautiful thank you written for you by one of our SK students. I think we still have some time for questions. If you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Sister Nahum. If you do have any questions at all, feel free to use the raise hand and we will be able to just unmute you and you can ask any questions. If you don't want to do that, of course, you can always just use the Q&A and put your questions in there. I do see a comment here saying they love the 5D thinking, Islam integrated framework. Thank you so much for these comments as well. And if you want to share more, if you have any comments, not even just questions, of course, you're more than welcome to raise your hand and we can just get you unmuted.
Yeah, I see your comment about the 5D thinking, which I truly share with you the same impression. I admire the 5D thinking, and I see this as a wonderful opportunity to nurture fitra in our children in a very scientific way. It really allows teachers to reflect with the children. It's an opportunity, honestly, for educators, not only children. We would love to have a webinar about pedagogical documentation and the science of reading. I would love to do that. I think that's something I can leave to ISAC to organize if something would happen in the future. I'm very open to that too. Thank you so much for the beautiful comments. I really appreciate your comments, everyone.
I don't think I see any other questions.
I don't want to be missing anything. Sometimes I'm not really the best with Zoom. So if you see
Yeah.
anything on your end, Hafsa, please let me know.
Yes, for sure. Okay, I'm seeing a little bit more now here.
Okay.
Um, okay, so we have a question here. With the new focus on coding and engineering, what does that actually look like for a 5-year-old? Is it screen-based or hands-on?
Hands-on, 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 hands-on. I know that screen time is great. I know that it's a good tool to have technology in the class. But due to the pressure that we have in the society on children and due to some children being, I don't want to say addicted, but sometimes they are, I'd like to avoid screen as much as I can at the early years because based on research, it significantly impacts their brain development. So I prefer to have hands-on to develop more fine motor skills, gross motor skills, critical thinking, and more interaction better than screens. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. And then we also have another one saying, you mentioned tarbiyah. Is there a guided curriculum?
In terms of tarbiyah, for example, at my school, we don't have a specific curriculum for tarbiyah. But we do it naturally as we are building relationship with children. We notice what values are missing in the class, what we need to focus on, what they always fight over or have conflict over. And then we start building a curriculum around it. It could be through read aloud. It could be through group discussions. It could be through hands-on. It depends on the values that we see is missing and we need to highlight in the class.
So I have a few more here. Children enter kindergarten at very different levels. How do you differentiate instruction for a child who is already reading versus one who is just learning their letters?
Beautiful question. Yes, differentiation is very important. Some children will bloom faster than the others, and that's very common. So for those who we call them fast finishers or fast, or they finish everything quickly because they are, mashallah, capable and they are ahead of their peers, we always assign them leadership position in the class. So we can ask them to help a peer or maybe help the teacher. The teacher might need your help, so they are engaged and busy and practice their leadership qualities. Sometimes we provide them with time just for reading if they are capable of reading at that age. We just give them books specifically for that age to keep reading and engage with, and we can extend it to comprehensive reading. So paragraphs or small books with a couple of simple questions that will keep them not just busy. The purpose is not to keep them busy. The purpose is to keep them engaged in a meaningful way to foster what they have and extend it.
Should documentation focus more on the process of learning rather than the final product?
Absolutely. And that's the main goal of the pedagogical documentation. And that's why it was taking the whole wall in that picture. It was covering from the fall until today, and it's still growing. It's living documentation in the class.
Okay, and then sorry, there's how about writing in the new curriculum for JK and SK, especially for those whom the English is a second language?
Uh, well, in the new curriculum, it's not really differentiating English as a second language or if it's not second language. With early learners, mashallah, they pick up the language faster than older grades. So writing in JK and SK, writing in JK will look different than SK. Writing in JK will be limited to writing and printing the letters themselves because they still need to recognize the letters and know how to write them. While in SK, we move to a higher level, which is blending, which start blending and writing words of 3 letters, and then we expand it to sentences. So it goes gradually from writing letters to writing words and then writing sentences, whether they are English speakers or non-English speakers. Probably with non-English speakers, it might be a little bit slow, but from my experience, by the end of the kindergarten program, the 2 years, everybody almost will be on the same level unless there's any developmental delays, which is rare.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry, I am trying to get to everyone's questions. Um, do you have any specific observation templates for grade 1?
Not really for grade 1. We can look into that if you want. I can write these notes down. For grade 1, it's a little bit different because grade 1 curriculum, it's going to be similar to kindergarten now because it's kindergarten is becoming more of a strengths and subject oriented, and that's the case in grade 1 already. So grade 1, it's not about observation. There is some sort of testing in grade 1. You do have spelling tests. You do have assessment for their math understanding and science understanding. So it's not observation. It's more of testing. Because we don't have that in kindergarten, we don't have testing. We rely more on observation and documentation. But we still can do something in grade 1 if they want us to look for something for them.
And then could you please provide more information on Haggerty?
Haggerty. If you go to the website of Haggerty, you will find a lot of resources that they can provide. In our school, we're just using the first level, which is the phonemic awareness. We ordered the teacher's guidance, our teacher's manual, and we use that. And it's very organized throughout the year for, I think, 34 weeks. And every week, they have specific steps that you have to do in every single circle time, starting from beginning sounds, ending sound, segmenting, rhyming. Everything is shown in steps. And it's a build-up process. So the first week will look entirely different than the last week. You start building through these weeks. It's a very interesting program, and it goes also and it aligns with the science of reading as well. And it's very important to implement it in JK, not in SK, because it's very foundational, very, very foundational.
Yes. Where is it? Okay, here it is. Yes. How do teachers support children who are still learning to manage big emotions or who struggle with the transition from home to school?
Yeah, we always see that, especially in September, and that's a social emotional question. Um, there's no one way, unfortunately, when it comes to emotions, there's no one way when we deal with big emotions, especially when we talk about separation and anxiety in September, first transition. So we try as much as we can before September starts to communicate with parents ahead of time. Give them guidelines, give them support by giving them maybe some tips, what we're expected to do in the first week of school. Giving them actually some links to books to read at home about how the first day of school might look like. And we invite them actually to get the kids and take a look in the class, meet the teachers for next year. That might reduce the anxiety a little bit, but we can't guarantee this will disappear. There's a lot of ways that we can navigate this with families and children. Some will immediately stop the anxiety, and some will linger on with them for some time. There's no one way.
Apart from the hands-on, how much are we supposed to focus on writing?
JK different than SK, of course. So the focus in JK will be, as I said, only on writing the letters. Some children will learn faster. Then you can differentiate again by providing them with more time to write maybe small words, like 3 sounds words. That's it in JK. I don't want to stress on their hands too. They're still little, and some of them are not really 4 yet in JK. But by the end of JK, you will see the significant improvement in their fine motor skills, and they will be able to write more. And the more they can, give them. I'm not going to limit that. There's no limit. As much as they can do, please give them and go ahead with that. That's not pressure as long as they can. But some children, you will notice that they can't do more than that. So let's go slow with them. Let's go with their pace instead. There's no limits. But by the end of SK, we are expecting them to write maybe a sentence or 2, and some of them can go to 3 sentences. That's it.
I see, just for the sake of time, I think we can do about two more.
Sure.
In your experience, do you think JK, SK classes should be combined or as separate grades since each grade has set specific goals that we hope students reach both developmentally and academically?
That's a great question. I have seen classes with mixed groups in the Thames Valley board when I used to work as a supply ECE, and I have seen separate, and I see a huge difference. When you separate them, you have the goals specific and you can reach them easier. While when you have mixed groups, it's not just confusing for you, it's sometimes it pulls you behind because you don't know which one to focus on more. I know that there's a benefit of that though, because sometimes the JK, especially the advanced one, can pick up a lot from the SK's curriculum. But with the new science of reading, because it's very explicit and it's very systematic and it has to be done in order, if we skip a couple of skills, that's not going to be good for what comes next. Then they will start showing gaps in their learning. So in my personal experience, when you separate them, that's better if you can.
Yes, and I think this one as well, just your thoughts on separate KG1 and KG2 classes versus mixed combined KG classes.
Yeah.
Yeah, in supporting student learning in new curriculum. Um, I'm just going to see if there's anyone here with their hands up. No, okay. And then if you can see any more on your end as well.
I'm checking on my end. Yeah, I think there's a question, I think, about yeah, what you said. But when we're teaching also Arabic, Quran, French, and science, so we have only recess and playtime as a playtime for the kids. I'm not sure if this is a question, but I understand that, yeah, when we have, especially in Islamic schools, that we have more subjects than the public system. We have Quran, Islamic studies, and Arabic classes. And in some other schools, they might have also French if they're French speaking. So that will take some of their time. It's tricky. I'm not saying it's easy, but again, trying to play around your schedule to find that time, create that time, not find, create that time for them to play. This is not a favor. This is their right. This is the right to play, to interact, to socialize, to develop the skills that you would never teach them and use your class to teach them verbally. It has to be done by doing, by interacting. So I understand it might be difficult, but this is something you can work with your administration to create this time.
Yes, that was beautiful. Thank you again, everyone, for your questions. I do apologize if I did if you miss your question at all, but just for the sake of time, I'd just like to, on behalf of ISAC and our partners as well, Nectar Education and Sound Vision Canada, we thank you for your time and dedication to this important work. Please stay connected with us for future events and invitations, and don't hesitate to reach out with feedback or further questions. So thank you everyone, Jazakallah khair, and have a wonderful, wonderful evening.